Okay, now we know that the signatures have been verified on the exterior of those envelopes and we're ready to open them. We have extraction equipment in Larimer County. We were one of the first counties to have this type of equipment. What happens is a bipartisan team of judges, one judge sits, one stands, the envelope goes through this equipment. It is slit on two sides so that it's opened. It's puffed open. The judge simply plucks the content out of that ballot envelope, which is why you no longer have a secrecy sleeve in Larimer County necessary, because they never see the content of the envelope associated with the name on the envelope itself. Those ballots are put into a tray. They're still folded, right? And that tray, they make sure the count remains the same. That tray goes out to another bank of judges and a bipartisan team who now unfold the ballot, right? Flatten it so it can go through our counting equipment. They put them in a box that has a tamper-resistant tape on it. They put a seal log on there with a number on it. That begins the chain of custody for those ballots. And as they're making their way through the process, they fill out the chain of custody form on the back, and it goes on a shelf ready for the folks to count. Yes, we do use Dominion equipment in Larimer County to count our ballots. It is one of two systems certified for use in the state. And I'm completely confident in the way the Dominion system counts our ballots in Larimer County because of the checks and balances we have in place. One of those checks and balances occurs before we begin counting ballots, and that's called the logic and accuracy test, where we bring judges in from both sides of the aisle. Each party must provide us with a judge. They do a hand count of a test deck of ballots. That test deck is also counted by the system. Those two must match before we will ever move forward. Then the folks in the counting area, they are going to go to that rack. We're back to the process now. They're going to go to that rack and grab that box off of the rack that the folks who unfolded those ballots put there. They're going to fill out the chain of custody, make sure that nothing happened to the tamper-resistant tape on that box or the seal. They're going to unseal that box. They're going to run those ballots through the counting equipment. It just, it scans those ballots, and it creates an image of those ballots in the system along with a cast vote record for that particular ballot. And they make sure the count remains accurate, that they're running the exact number of ballots through that system that they should be. And once they're done with that counting, those ballots are put into back into that box. That box is resealed with another seal number on it, and they fill out the chain of custody on the back of that box, and they put it on a rack that says these have been counted. Now, during that process, there are going to be some ballots that are torn or have coffee spill or something like that. In those cases, those ballots are pulled out separately and handled separately, and we handle them in what is called duplication. A team of bipartisan judges recreates that ballot so that it is something that actually can go through the counting equipment. They use a voter intent guide if there's any question on the voter intent on that ballot. And that voter intent guide is the same voter intent guide as is used by every county across Colorado. The second situation that might occur as those ballots are being counted is the system may say, wait a minute, I can't read what the voter wanted on this ballot. Maybe someone began to fill out an oval and then they changed their mind and went to another one and completely filled it out. And sometimes the system will say, wait a minute, there's enough in that oval that we ought to have this looked at by human eyes. That's called adjudication. Those images that need to be adjudicated are then sent out by the system to another bank of bipartisan judges who look at the image of that ballot and determine voter intent as part of adjudication. And again, they're using that voter intent guide to do so. Election day ends at 7 p.m. on election day, right? You can't vote after 7 p.m. So once 7 p.m. comes, we upload the data from our system that we've been using to count ballots, and we know what the results of the election are, and we post those on our website at vote.larimer.gov. No, we do not know the results in advance. I get asked that question often because we do begin counting 15 days in advance, but we do not know. We do not upload that information until after the polls close on election night. Our first posting on our website is typically at about 7:30. We want to be sure everyone's out of the polls before we do that. And our second posting usually 9:30, third posting usually 11:30. And since we've gone to all-mail balloting, it's pretty rare for us to receive fewer than 20,000 ballots on election day. I have said for years that if we do receive more than 20,000 ballots on election day, we will stop counting. We usually do that about 11:30 after that 11:30 posting, and we resume counting the next day. That's a safety and quality issue for our judges, right? It's hard for them to continue counting that late into the night when it's been such a long day, and we want them to be safely getting home. Once the ballots are all counted, we then have what is called a risk limiting audit. This is a second element that gives me the confidence in our Dominion system that it is counting votes, those ballots, accurately. And the risk limiting audit requires that we pluck ballots, those actual paper ballots, out of boxes. Remember, there is no such thing as an electronic ballot in Colorado. All ballots are paper ballots. And so the judges are required to pluck certain ballots based on what the Secretary of State requires us to do as part of that risk limiting audit. The entire state is participating in this audit, and they pluck the ballots out of those boxes. They take those ballots over to a tool at which they enter what they see on that ballot face. Again, it's in a bipartisan team. That tool has the cast vote record in it for that particular ballot. It is comparing what the system said how the ballot was voted and how the paper ballot appears to these judges. That must match. So that risk limiting audit ensures that the system counted the ballot exactly as it looks on the paper, right? And the last step in the process for us is the canvass process, and we will discuss that in just a moment.